So far, we have two factoring techniques. The first one is when we factored out a greatest common factor, and the second one is factoring based on the conjugate pairs, so factoring the difference of perfect squares. Today we're going to tackle the most difficult of the factoring techniques, and that is of factoring trinomials. So first, let's double check and make sure we remember how to multiply binomials. So x times x is x squared, x times 3 is 3x, 5 times x is 5x, and finally 5 times 3 is 15. Remember that we need to combine our like terms, so that becomes 8x, 5x squared, positive 8x, positive 15. I want you to do the next two on your own, so pause now and see if you can do them. X times x is x squared, x times 7 is 7x, negative 2x, negative 14. So it becomes x squared plus 5x minus 14. X times x is x squared, negative 10x, negative 5x, positive 50. So x squared minus 15x plus 50. So we're going to try a few more that are a bit more difficult. It's critical that you're fluent in knowing how to multiply two binomials. So 2x times 5x is 10x squared. 2x times 1 is 2x. Negative 3 times 5x is negative 15x. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. We need to combine like terms, so it becomes 10x squared minus 13x minus 3. Again, you can always pause and see if you can do these on your own. So 6x squared, positive 12x, 7x, positive 14. Combine like terms. So 6x squared plus 19x plus 14. Our last one, 8x squared, negative 20x, negative 2x, positive 5. So 8x squared minus 22x plus 5. There's something I really want you to pay attention to, because this is something that's going to become very, very useful when we start to undo the types of problems that we did in exercise 2. I want you to see that every single one of them has b split up in 2 before you go and combine them, because that's a really critical step that you can't forget. So we're going to reverse this process. Let's look at 2x squared plus 13x plus 20. We're going to rewrite it as two coordinate pairs. But here's what I want. I'm not going to use how they are showing you how to use on this worksheet. I'm going to give you a trick. So for standard form of trinomials, it's always ax squared plus bx plus c. And I call this the AC method. It's something I learned from a professor in college, where you always keep the a, you always keep the c, and then you're going to split that b into two parts like we did, like you had before you combine them to make the trinomials in the last problem. So let's look at the original problem, 2x squared plus 13x plus 20. So we keep the ax squared, so 2x squared, and we keep the c. We're going to end up splitting the b into two things. In order to find what b is, we now need to do a times c. So remember, it's called the AC method. So we're going to find a times c. Well, the a in this one is 2, right? Because that 2 right there. And the c is 20. So those multiply to become 40. So we need to figure out what multiplies to equal 40 but adds to equal 13, because 13 is what got split up, because that's what combined. Since 20 is positive and so is 13, we can assume that both of the middle terms are also going to be positive. So multiplies to equal 40, adds to equal 13. So let's think of what multiplies to equal 40. What multiplies to equal 40 is 1 times 40, 2 times 20, 4 times 10, 5 times 8. Those all multiply to equal 40. But which ones can also add to equal 13? The two that can add to equal 13 are 5 and 8. So you want to put the smaller term first and the bigger term second. So now we have undone what we did on the previous problem. I have 2x squared plus 5x plus 8x plus 20. I'm going to erase these down here so we have more room. And now we have two binomials that I can find the greatest common factor of. Well, the greatest common factor for 2x squared and 5x is just x, and I'm left with 2x plus 5. But the greatest common factor for 8x and 20 is 4, and I'm left with 2x plus 5. We know that we've done this correct because the two factors inside the parentheses are the same. So 2x plus 5 is going to be our very first term. Our second term is what's left over. So I have an x on the outside here and a positive 4 on the outside here. So x plus 4 is our second term. So it's a process, but it's actually not too difficult. I will show you some other ways to do it in a bit. But this is the way that I have found truly works every single time. And as long as you remember, it's called the AC method. It always deals with the A. It always deals with the C. So why does it make sense that they're both positive? Because the B and C were both positive. And then we're going to go ahead and cancel this out. You might want to notice that the 5 and 4 do multiply to equal 20, but they don't add to equal 13. So that's why the AC method is really important, because you have to go through all these steps over here. All right, so now I'm going to have you try B and C, because those ones are a little bit easier. These are the ones that they don't have a number in front of the x squared. They're just regular trinomials. These ones are more like a puzzle. Like the other ones are a puzzle too, but these ones are more of thinking in your head what can happen. So we need to find what multiplies to equal 10 but adds to equal 7. So we need to think of the factors of positive 10. I have 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. Those are my only factors of 10. But please notice that that's a negative 7. So that means negative, 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 negative. Because a negative times a negative is a positive, and a negative plus a negative is a negative. Obviously, negative 2 and negative 5. So x minus 2 and x minus 5 is your factor. I want you to try letter C now on your own and see if you can figure it out. Okay, multiplies equal 21, adds to equal 10. It's 7 and 3. It really doesn't matter what order you write your factors in. Before I show you new ways to do letter A and D, I want you to practice the way that I showed you before, the AC method. So remember, you keep the A, so 3x squared, and you keep the C, and you're splitting up the B. Then we need to find what is A times C. So 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Multiplies equal negative 12, adds to equal positive 11. So if it multiplies equal negative and adds to equal a positive, then 1 will be negative, 1 will be positive. So negative 1 and positive 12. Negative 1 times positive 12 is negative 12. Negative 1 plus 12 is positive 11. So now we're going to split it up into two binomials. Greatest common factor in the first binomial is x. You're left with 3x minus 1. Greatest common factor in the next one is positive 4. You're left with 3x minus 1. So our first term is 3x minus 1. And our second term is x plus 4. Please try letter D on your own as well. We keep the A, we keep the C. So our A times C is 20, because 10 times 2 is 20. Multiplies equal 20, adds to equal 9. So, adds equal 9, multiplies equal 20, it's 4 and 5. We always do the smaller number first. So now, two binomials. Greatest common factor is 2x. I'm left with 5x plus 2. There's not a greatest common factor in our next one, so it's just 1. And I have 5x plus 2, so our first term is 5x plus 2. Our second term is 2x plus 1. I think I'm just going to show you the next one on the next lesson. So for today, I want you to keep practicing the ones you've already learned. So E, keep our A, keep our C, and our A times C, 8 times 9 is 72. Multiplies equal negative, or positive 72 adds equal negative 18, which means I'm going to have two negatives. 72 is 12 and 6, so negative 12x, negative 6x. You'll notice this time I have two negatives. So I have a negative. I'm going to put that other negative, the negative 6x, in the parenthesis. Our greatest common factor in 8x squared and 12x is 4x, and I'm left with 2x minus 3. My greatest common factor in the next one, though, because I have a negative 6x, I'm going to have to take out a negative. And it is a 3, and I'm left with 2x minus 3. So 2x minus 3 is our first term. Our second term is 4x minus 3. Keep our A. Keep our C. And our A times C is negative 66. Well, negative 66 is a 6 and 11. One of them has to be negative. One has to be positive. Well, if they add to equal positive 5, then that means that the 11 has to be positive, and the 6 has to be negative. And 2x squared and 6x is 2x, and we're left with x minus 3. 11x and 33 is 11, and we're left with x minus 33. So, sorry, not 33, just 3. So x minus 3 is our first term. Our second term is 2x plus 11. Letter G doesn't have a number in front of x squared, so we're just going to do our puzzle. Multiplies equal 12, adds equal 8. Well, a negative and a negative. And that's negative 6 and negative 2. And our last one, 7x squared and negative 8. And A times C is going to be negative 56. So multiplies equal negative 56, adds equal negative 26. So 56 has 2 that goes into it. 2 and 28. So it's got to be 2 and 28. But we have to determine which one's negative and which one's positive. Well, if they add to equal negative 26, then the 28 has to be negative. So negative 28x, positive 2x. Greatest common factor is 7x, and we're left with x minus 4. Greatest common factor is 2, and we're left with x minus 4. X minus 4, and 7x plus 2.